Yes. Okay. All right. Perfect. Hello, everybody. How are you guys? I hope everyone is doing
Hello.
well.
Hey, Elliot. Good to see you again.
Mike, what's up, man? Thanks for setting all this up. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
yeah, no, appreciate you doing this. This is a treat. I know I had Sophia watch some of the YouTube stuff you uploaded from from the original one.
Wait. Well,
Should
I'm
be
glad she watched it. I'm glad we got a kick out of it. So what we'll do, if you got any like noise in the background, help me and just mute your speaker so I can think through it and talk through all these concepts for you guys. So I want to just start off and just kind of like talk a little bit about the game and what I think that we can control as coaches. And then, we can kind of start to go into different areas from the game from there and talking a little bit about, man up, man down, and then we're going to get through some of the offense and defense with the players. So there should be a fair amount of learning here. So I kind of wanted to focus on some of like the things that we can really control as coaches. And so the first and most important thing that I would really impress on you guys as coaches is to understand that we are in charge of substitutions and subbing. And so the more we can get the girls into a pattern of subbing in whatever our strategy is going to be, the better we're going to be. And we want to think about that from a perspective of time, like really managing their energy levels, right? So when you play box versus field, it is a all-out sprint when you're on the floor. Now, there are moments where you're going to pick and choose and you're going to kind of control your energy, but for the most part, it's a big like fight almost when you're on the floor every shift and you're fighting for space and time and you need to be fresh for it. And so you can't really expect the players to always be able to temper and control themselves. Like they want to go and play, and you want players that want to go and play. So teaching them to play inside of that substitution system can be one of the biggest things for new programs to really understand and manage is like focusing on getting them into that system. If you're going, defense off and then in the middle subbing as you go to offense, then coming back and you're just in that rhythm. You're playing offense, you're going to defense, you're subbing off, offense, defense, off, and that is the rhythm, and you hold to that. And even if girls are only getting maybe like a quarter of a shift or whatever, they'll get into that. The program will start to grow because of it, because you're going to be getting kids in the right spots at the right time at the right energy levels. So super, super important. I always recommend at the youth and through US Box Law, it's always, everyone plays O, everyone plays D until they're about 16, until they're about 16, and then you can kind of start to focus of sides of the ball. Um, as we think about that, we want to start to think about door management when we're in the substitution game. And so when we're in this substitution game and we're playing through this, we have two doors. We have the outdoor and the indoor. So if we're subbing, and let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Okay. Why are you not signing in? I guess gonna have to go with new. Okay. Just gonna have to go with a new whiteboard. So give me just a second. So if we're subbing, so this is a horrible representation of a bench there, but I got to do it on the fly. So I'll zoom out here a little bit so we can see that. So if this is our bench and this is our defensive end on this side of the floor, the high side of the screen, we're going to have two doors. Now, typically, you're always going to want to transition the ball up the non-bench side of the floor. But when we're actually in the process of subbing, we have two doors particularly. We have the door that the girls would be going out, which would be more towards this side of the bench, the deep side of the bench, towards the offensive side. And then we'd have more of the D side of the bench. So as we were subbing, we would want to think about which coach is on which door. Now, the door that the girls are going out, you really want to think about having your more experienced coach on that door that's going to understand and talk the girls through like positioning and what they should be doing as they go on the floor. So, for example, this coach could be not only helping give direction, like, hey, Abby, as you come hard off the bench, let's see if we can get a little symbol here. We have a gigantic square, and that's going to be our girl coming off the bench. So we could be telling, and we have the ball carrier coming down. So if this is the ball carrier here, and it's transitioning down, our coach that's on the outdoor can be talking through with our girl and telling her what to do. Hey, run and push the break. Or if the ball carrier has a clear shot going down, hey, go in and trail behind the play and watch and see if she takes a shot and it hits off the boards, you can go get that ball. And so now this outdoor coach, the front door going to offense can really start to make an impact on the game, while the indoor coach can be totally focused on getting the girls into a subbing rotation. And so that coach on the indoor, right as that possession's about to change with like 3 to 5 seconds left, or as the turnover's occurring, we're really thinking about talking to the girls early. Hey, change, girls, get ready to change. Come off the floor, come off the floor. And so now we're getting them thinking prior to that change and that transition, and we're helping them assist with that turnover, which really is box across to me, which is transitioning from D to O and O to D, and we're just playing that game. And so now your coaches have a little bit more structure on the bench of what they should be doing and really helping move the girls on the floor into and in the correct order, and your bench is going to be, more harmonized. A couple of things to think about for you guys when you're on the bench, and you don't just have to run your athletes through like you can. So if say you have, all these girls, they just filtered in from this last shift and they're working their way up the bench. Well, as they're working their way to the front of that door, feel free to grab them and organize them as you see the lines will fit best, as to how the other teams lining up. So for example, if they're sending out a bunch of, we always say meat, like if there's a bunch of like big boys, big girls out on the floor, hey, we got to send the meat out there because we got to go match power for power. And but if they're having a lot of quicker girls out there, then we're going to kind of try to match them up evenly as we go on the floor. And those little things of just like making sure your lineups are good, and if you have a girl that you may need to hide a little bit, sticking her out there with some better athletes so she can do well and she can excel. And then it like you kind of, there are all these little areas that you can make impacts, but you don't have as much time to communicate with them as you would in a field game. So you kind of have to pick and choose your battles a little bit more. And when you're in the midst of those periods and you're playing, you're really like thinking about how can I get my athletes lined up and organized on the floor so they can go attack and they can be in the right spots. That's what you're trying to do as a coach, is get them into those correct spots. Field, I think there's a lot more opportunity to like massage and make things work and manipulate as a coach, where the players have to do a lot more of that. So, um, are there any questions on any of that before we move forward?
No, I think that's really helpful. Like we had talked about, we didn't really know what to expect with subbing, so like our whole subbing plan changed after that first tournament. And I think now, like we do have some kids that I think we could all agree that we feel very questionable about playing both sides of the ball. But I would say for the majority, they all could play everything. Um, but I have like a couple players in my head to like, the other coaches, and I'm like, do we do like a D to A sub, like one for one, and then just like rotate everyone else, um, or do we just force them to get up and down the floor and play both? That I guess that's more or less my question.
Yeah, and it's like a really big development question too. And I think that like I can't truly speak on your program and how you want those athletes to move through it. And I think that would like you would kind of like fall back on your program's fundamentals of how it would develop them. And so my thought process is if you had like one athlete on a team, you could probably get away with that, like a little one for one trade. But when you start doing like two for two, it gets really tough to manage that on the bench because you kind of have the door coaches are going to have to do so much communicating on like getting that one player on and off. And unless it's a problem of that athlete like truly can't like run the floor, they can probably do something good until it's about U16 and then it really starts to change game wise, but they can probably make up for it. So I would tell them like, that my philosophy would be get them, playing both sides of the ball. And then if it's horrible, you have that oh girl, you could always try to sneak her off if you see her near the bench side and kind of give her a little individual direction. Like, hey, just come to the bench and we can send one. But it's a lot of extra coordination. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's,
Okay.
so yeah,
All right.
long-winded way of saying, explaining all that.
Yeah, we all, Kristen, remember we also had for Connecticut, the setup is exactly like you described, Elliot. Then we get to Philly, and I believe there was only one door.
Mm,
Oh, right. Yeah, that was a huge problem too.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the bench a little, and both sides have the problem,
yep.
right? But it's like it wasn't really a box lacrosse setup, so they build it. I think Marlboro might even be set up the same way, the four kicks facility. So you just have that one, and then it's a little bit of it just makes for a little more chaos.
Yeah, I totally understand. So little things that can help you guys with that. So, there's like you have the bench and then there's the sub box in area of the bench. Are these tournaments like putting the tape down in front of that?
No, but they essentially allowed us to like have kids sit in that sub box because of the one door issue. And so we just sort of told the girls, if you're going on, stand in this box. It's a stick's length from the door. Um, but for us, I think it was like a oh shit moment. Like, what, what do we do now? Like one door. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it can make things a little tough. So the big thing is always letting the girls that are going on the floor first. Everyone can kind of hold there
Yep.
in that substitution box. And the other thing is just making sure the girls are aware, like if I'm standing right here and the corner of the sub box is here and I'm subbing, as soon as I get inside this sub box, we can now send somebody. It doesn't have to be to the front door. It's all across the box. And what that can do is that can start to create little advantages where, if I run really, really hard, and even though it's a one door, box, I run to this short side of the bench. Well, that's 20, 30 feet of space right there that this girl can now explode out of the front door and
Yeah.
potentially get a breakaway. So these are like little thoughts that we kind of want to think about when we're talking to the girls about subbing and just getting them to that bench.
So essentially, like if it's one door, if they're subbing out, they can go to the very like first part of the box and just hang in that like substitution area and the yeah, so I guess that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they just kind of just hang and just let them hang and let the other girls go on, and then they can just slowly file in. And you kind of have them like what I would do is I'd have a coach on the door here, I'd have a coach at the end of the bench down here, and I'd have a coach up because the benches are going to be fairly tight there. You might be
Yep.
able to get away with just two coaches where you have one on the door and one up here because you don't have two, and then the kids would kind of like filter in, and you just create that little system, which I'm sure they kind of figured out naturally, but then you can kind of like reorganize and use the bench to stand like the second line up there if you're trying to like organize by lines and match athletes up a little bit more. So just like little things like that.
Yep.
Okay, so good. Oh,
Awesome. I'm really glad that looks good to you.
what the heck is that? Okay. So going into, I wanted to break down a little bit of, Sorry, I just lost my spot. Okay. So I wanted to go over a little bit more of offensive game management, what we can be looking for as far as like markers of if we're having good offensive possessions or bad offensive possessions, and how we can kind of talk with the athletes through that. So the very first thing that we want to recognize is, are we getting high percentage shots or not? And so give me just a second to draw this out. So if I have Okay, so there's my box lacrosse cage. We'll center that up a little bit because that's going to bug me. Go here. Okay, so the first thing that we need to recognize is there's these, like, if you've ever seen a hockey rink, there are going to be these big circles right here. And they're just these hockey circles, and there's typically two of them, and there's a dot in the center. That hockey dot is a perfect representation of the line that we should always be trying to get above when we shoot. So if we have the ball, if come here, if we have the ball here and this girl has it, carrying it into this space and shooting it's a really tough place to score from because of the angle the goalie should be standing on. We should constantly be getting into this space here as a right-handed player to shoot all the way up to about this backside post line and a little bit out. And so if we're focusing on getting the primary amount of our shots as we carry the ball, dodge with the ball into this space, we're doing something right with our offense. Now, these areas of the field are great areas of the field to attack if we're passing it back door. So, let's see if I can grab this. So, when we look at any sort of action, if we're carrying the ball up or going down underneath, the goalie is going to have to play on a line like this as we bring the ball underneath. And so that line, their stick is down. We can easily throw the ball over top the goalie to this backside player, and that's a empty net look. We call that a one-timer in hockey, a quick stick, if you will. And the more of these that we can train our girls to hunt for and look for, the better. Now, the girls get this a little bit faster than the boys do because it's such a pass-heavy game in field lacrosse. So them throwing the ball is like it's not as you girls get it a little bit more on that end of the play. And so teaching filling this back spot and looking for those skips, those are the looks that we're looking for. The cuts into the center, those are the things that we're looking for. But anything where the goalie's back is so turned on one side and we can hit it here and this goalie's going to have to like crash this backside post. Those are the real skips that we're looking for. And because we're playing indoors and there's boards all around this, we can throw that ball and miss and still have a chance to go get that loose ball back. So they're like, this is super important to have our girls constantly looking for this. So we're trying to drive into these high percentage scoring areas, and then we're trying to skip the ball to the backside or get the goalie moving post to post as we get shots. And the marker, so we're aware, is about 25 feet from the goal line extended. That's about as far out as we want to be when we're shooting it. And that's in the general frame of a possession. So, what I mean by that is You have a 30-second shot clock that you're working inside of every possession. You should be managing transition and getting the ball down the floor with about 10-second time frame on average. Sometimes you're going to get down faster and you're going to get breakaway opportunities because of that. But the 10-second mark is pretty standard. The NLL is 8 seconds to get it across. So about 10 seconds is pretty fair for most youth teams. It should work. As you get into the first like this, so now you're in the second third of the shot clock as you're setting up your offense. When we're playing with shots inside of that time frame, the 10 to 20 second mark in the shot clock, or the 20 to 10, we should count it backwards. So it'd count down from 30. So from the 20 to 10 second mark, we are looking to get shots inside of 20 feet to 18 feet. We want to be inside of that range because that's going to now can create the constraint for the girls as they carry over because they're used to field lacrosse and shooting from further out. Everything is going to feel like a good shot for them. It's a little bit different for the girls game than it is for the boys game because the boys shoot so much further out, but the girls definitely like some of them are starting to shoot hard from the outside. So anything can feel open. And so we want to kind of standardize trying to get inside of 20 feet early in the possession. And then as we get to that 10 to about 5 second mark, it's like now we're starting to look from that 20 to 25 feet. And then after that 5 second mark, we're just trying to get a shot on net at that point. If we can shoot it off the goalie's leg pads and get a rebound, even better, right? So if we're like focusing, especially if it's like we're talking to the girls and a great warm-up drill for them when they're shooting at practice is if you're attacking like low angle shots where they're driving underneath, you can literally like have them try to hit the goalie's legs and like watch how the ball pops out and just kind of start to see that. And this is like a real thing that players do where they throw it off the leg pads and they go get the ball in the corner. And so just really lots of things to kind of play with, but that's the big thing that we're kind of looking to play with is understanding the parameters of where we're trying to get the ball, what is going to constitute a good shot inside of what side, what time on the clock, and then a lot of are we getting enough skips to the backside to make the goalie move? So lots of detail in that. If anybody wants to ask questions, now would be a great time. Cool.
I don't
Um,
have a question. I think that's great.
cool. Perfect. So, one other little thing to kind of think about with offense. So, whenever we're playing, I always try to tell people, hey, 2 to 4 seconds with the ball in your stick, 2 to 4 seconds with the ball in your stick. You're constantly keeping it moving and keeping hot. Now, these, so this is called the crease in box lacrosse, and this is called the shooter position here. And then the point would be in the center, and then you'd have the righty shooter position in the righty crease. Okay. When we talk about playing off ball, I talk about the concept of playing on a half pipe. If you guys are familiar with skateboarding, X Games, snowboarding, stuff like that, okay, these two positions, the shooter the shooter and the crease, are the edges of the half pipe. And so I want you to think about it like this player is coming up this half pipe and showing from the opposite side when they're off ball for a some sort of swing pass across the floor, or filling space to catch and shoot, or maybe coming around some seals and some picks and cutting hard to the net. But you're coming up and kind of getting some air here. You got some action, and at the same time, we're getting this athlete cutting down all the way past GLE. Now, it's really important to go past GLE because you're still an option to score when you're standing on GLE because you're off ball and because of the way this goalie is positioned, covering up that backside post, you can go all the way down to GLE and still be an option to score on a quick stick or a one timer. So, and then after you make that cut, you're just kind of circling and going back up. And this player is cutting down now. And you're just kind of, you can be a menace in here too. So you should be running into people. We call it banging bodies. If there's someone, a defender in your way, you should be making contact with that defender, maybe popping off into space, maybe cutting the back post again, right? Just be a kind of a menace when you're in this world because the defenders should be just as mean to you when they're in this space. They should be cross-checking you and hitting you so you're impeding them at all times. But this is your half pipe concept. So you want to occupy this shooter position for about 2 to 4 seconds, in this crease position about 2 to 4 seconds, and you are constantly filling. And if there's a third person in that cycle, if there's a third, if you're not going to work for me, let's see if I can get one more here. So if we have a third in there, this little half pipe cycle, easy things that this person can do is space to the other side of the floor. If they see like the ball's going to come across, they can start to space over here to let these two have more time. They can circle around the back of the crease, right? And come back down here to give these guys some space, or they can just jump into this rotation. So if this player cut down, this player is kind of like floating inside. This player filters up. This player's now cutting down, and this player is kind of cutting into the middle. So it's not like there's this like super set way about going about it. You really kind of need to understand concepts and spacing. And the big concept here is when you're off ball and you're on the back side, you're playing like it's a half pipe. You're constantly in and out. And the more you can get on these in and out cuts, like if you can't figure out what a good option is, it's always great to just get inside. If there's a hard lane down where you can cut here and like burn your defender on that cut and just get to the back post, take that route all day because that is devastating to teams. When you watch really high level box lacrosse, that play is made all the time and it's super important to constantly hunt for it. Um, que-
Elliot, so I just
yeah.
have a quick question. So, this like half pipe movement, is this just for off-ball players? Or if the ball is on that side too, or is it like whatever side the ball is on, you just want the two on that side?
Yeah, that's actually a great question and something I'd never really even considered. But I guess with the ball side as well, you'd want to have it as a half pipe motion as well and the cycling constantly. So if you were ball side or not, the constant mechanics are if this player has the ball down here, we're constantly kind of trying to carry up into that high percentage scoring area. And this player is constantly trying to get through to create space, and then they can always come back and set picks, get low, whatever. And this third man has to kind of, for your teams, I would recommend sticking strictly with a two-man game on ball and letting the third player just play off on the off ball side to create space. So to answer your question, yes, the half pipe mechanic is like constant motion, constant spacing, and you're constantly thinking about getting to the edges of it and then coming back together to set picks and roll and etc.
And that third person, is that like either a bigger person or like a high IQ kid? Um, or do you just like go for size to have them put their stick up for like a give and go or something? Or what do you think is best to put in that spot?
If it were me and I were coaching a team, I would take the kid that's the least strongest ball handler and put them in this situation. Because
Okay.
you can still get kids that can catch and throw inside, but let's not make them have to like work through cross checks and make decisions under pressure. Let's let them just kind of float around in space, and they can be crashing into these defenders over here and popping. And honestly, one of the easiest ways to get open in box lacrosse is if this star is a defensive player here, you can watch this happen in almost every NLL game, almost every single shift. Any pick that comes up like this, and we kind of pick to the inside So the off-ball player could go down like this. So when the off-ball player can go down like this player picks and turns to the middle is almost always open. So if you had a girl that was like not too strong with handling the ball, they could go to the off-ball side, set an up pick, and then curl back to the on-ball side in a little pocket here in the middle and be really successful.
So they're not really setting a pick for the ball carrier, right? Because they're setting it
Yeah,
on the side.
it would be on the off-ball side, so kind of like up and over.
Okay.
Questions?
Do you um do you like label I love the half pipe concept. Um are you like primarily keeping your lefties on the right half pipe and telling them to stay there and then like vice versa with the righties?
Yes. So you're always going to stay strong side. So if these are my lefties, they're going to stay strong side. And I'm going to take this line, get rid of it. So this line right here. So if you were a lefty, you could probably go to right across this line here, and you could float over here, and you could still be an option to score even from your weak side. And that's not going to really get in the way of anything the righties are going to do, and it's going to give the lefties space to work when we're on ball. And then they would, if you got sucked over here, you would just want to come underneath and come back around, or just if you had the opportunity, like the ball was being carried over, you could just stay above the crease and filter back to this side as the ball starts to work to the right-handed side of the floor. And then this girl here, even if she carried a little across this line, she could throw it down to the righties, and then she'd want to cut to get back to her strong side.
Okay. We don't, I mean, we're not, I would say one of our teams actually has a good amount of lefties. Our 5-6 team, maybe we have two or three.
Mhm.
But at least like identifying where these kids should be, I think this will be really helpful for them to hear tonight. I think something to this extent. Um, like some sort of format for them to follow or plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's so complicated for them and there's so much decision making. And then if you don't have the correct number of lefties, then it becomes really hard
Hmm.
to kind of balance. So one other little thing that you can do, if you have right-handed players that have to play on the left-hand side of the floor, you can have a lefty over there, and then you can let the righty be a picker for the lefty and just try to open them up, which is pretty straightforward. If you get stuck and you have to have five righties on the floor and the ball has to go to the left side of the floor for whatever reason, like to get spacing or whatever, one of the easiest things to do to attack is get the ball to the lefty shooter with that righty, and then you can kind of bring that crease player in and set a pick so they can go underneath. And now their stick is to the outside, so they're not a huge threat to score, but they can carry this direction and look to feed back into the offense. So you can kind of set the other righties up to be cutting or filling space, or you have this role that you can immediately get the ball to. And if you have five righties on the floor, and you get a little pick and roll right here where they carry, and then the ball gets passed to this player, and you get a shot from a righty from that side, that's not the end of the world when you have five righties on the floor. That's a decent look that you can go after.
So are you like, are we trying to maximize the amount of time for our lefties to be on the floor? Like, I'm just thinking our 5-6 team, like we have very limited. I don't even know if we have three. I'd have to like go back and look, but or is like at this level, it's just whatever is out there.
I would always try to get maximize lefty time on the floor as much as possible. Um, some ways that you could do that depending on your lines is you could have your lefties going like 2-1 essentially. So
Mhm.
you send two lefties out, you send one lefty out, two lefties out, one lefty out, and in the middle of that, you could have a third line in there that's like a defensive push line. So you could take your most athletic girls, say, when you guys get the ball, you guys just go make a really hard push up the floor to offense, and then we'll try to like sub you off on the way back to defense, and we'll get a new shift out there, and they can kind of run that way where you're creating some sort of pressing moment. That might be a little bit advanced, but just kind of going through it with you guys. The more time you can get the floor balance, the easier it's going to be to score goals, and it's really hard to score goals. So figuring that out is super important. If you don't have enough lefties, my thing would be to speed up transition as much as possible and try to get more and more opportunities
And
coming from your defensive end.
yeah.
Cool. So, a couple things, just like as you know, we kind of like wrap up, not wrapping up, but kind of getting ready for the girls to jump on, talking about things that we can kind of manage as coaches on the defensive end. So, when we think about defense, the areas of the floor that we, let me set this up. Okay. Okay. So my star is my defender. The square diamonds are offensive players. They are in the shooter, point, and shooter positions. When we think about defense from the shooter position, this is the player that needs to extend out, and we need to be funneling them underneath as much as humanly possible. Now, when they go underneath, our goal is to keep them going underneath because we're most likely going to have another defender underneath here that can help us out. Now, we never want this defender to actively slide upfield because that's going to leave a girl, offensive player right next to the net for a quick bury. We never want to slide upfield, whether it's man down, rotating like you would in a box, or sliding up. We just don't do it. We'd rather hold and let that shot come from further out where our goalie can be set and make that save. Now, as as we think about defense, the number one thing that I see out of American teams is we don't cross check enough. And it's a thing of we have to get out there and be comfortable cross checking our opponent's bicep to elbow to kind of like hip rib area. And it really becomes important as the ball carrier is coming up and starting to turn that corner. This is where the pressure has to be at its maximal, is in this shooter to point position at about 30 feet away from the net and in. We have to be hitting really hard and driving them up and out of the offensive zone. When the ball is low, and we'll say probably 15 to 20 feet above the goal and out wide here, like when it's working in this situation down here, we don't need to go out and pressure the ball. And the reason we don't need to go pressure the ball when it's down here with this player is because there's such little angle to score based on the way the goalie is going to be standing in this position. That's going to be the line that the goalie is holding and making. So unless this player can somehow throw it over the goalie and hit the backside post, there's really not going to be many opportunities as long as your goalie is holding this short side post. So this defender's job is to slowly edge their way out and always kind of take that high side positioning away for the stick, right? We just want them to have to almost shoot it through us, which no kid is going to do in this situation. They're just not comfortable enough with that shot. Most pros won't take that shot because it's just too difficult to score. So we kind of hold that high side positioning. We want to stay, our right shoulder needs to be right as high as this lefty shoulder, and we're just going to edge up. And then as they get to that line where it starts to get to a high percentage shot, we then should be able to make contact with a cross check and start to drive them up and out of this zone. So a little bit of like, I don't know what's happening right now. There we go. A little bit of positional play from the crease and the shooter, position on the defensive side, the point position after the first pass and after this girl cuts through. Really, there is no point position. That's just the shooter kind of coming over, this player just coming over into the space, and eventually they're going to cut through and go back. So we just really need to worry about talking about defense from the perspective of the shooter and the crease position. The point becomes non-existent. Um, Mandatory when the ball is inside of this area on the crease, or there are off-ball players that are in here. This is a mandatory physical zone. It's cross-checking only, and we have to make sure that we're trying to drive those girls out with our legs. We don't want to see these like massive hits where we're like destroying this girl. It's about creating contact with that cross check and using your legs to drive her out of that area. And we want to be very assertive in this space. This is our house. This is our area that we own, and we're constantly managing it. If girls are driving, we're never letting them get a step on us. We're staying stick on their shoulder, running with them, driving them out of that space. We're being a menace, and we're never allowing them any sort of free hand opportunity because even the best box across players, they can have a defensive stick on them even too and still catch the ball and bury us. So we have to be very on top of cutters. There's no letting them get a run by. We put a check on them every single time. The last thing is communication. When we're talking about the picking game, I always recommend we double tap on any communication. It's always pick left, pick left, pick right, pick right. It's just going to help with the communication a little bit more, is never going to hurt any situation. Um, so with that being said, now would be a great time to, ask any questions about any of this.
Um, so the bottom crease players, there's probably one on each side,
Hmm.
and then the remaining three up top on the point and the two shooters.
Yes.
So are those players, aside from the player going to put pressure on the ball on one of those, the point or the shooters, the other ones are sort of staying sucked in like at the 20-foot mark or so? Is that
Yes.
okay?
So
So as the ball moves to a different person, whether it's the shooter or the point, once your on ball duties are done, you go back to sort of sag back in to that like 20 or 20-foot mark.
correct.
Okay.
So when you're out, you're on the ball, this player has it. The minute that ball moves, we would drop step, open up to the pass,
Mhm.
and then we would want to recover typically when we're adjacent to the ball, we would want to recover to the point that's in the passing lane of the ball carrier to the backside player. So this lane right here is where we would kind of want to recover to. And then as this player starts to carry with the ball and move it over here, then we can finish and slough all the way in. And when I say slough all the way in, we're getting really close to the line the backside post would be on. And And so we're going to start off there. And then the one caveat is in youth, you're not going to see this a whole bunch. The only reason that you'd want to stay out here is if this girl just had an absolute cannon. Like if she could just blast the ball from the outside, you could definitely stay out a little bit more. And when you watch NLL game film, you see these players out way further on the off-ball side because they have to defend the outside shot so much more. So if you guys are ever watching NLL together, and those off-ball defenders aren't as sloughed in, you know it's because those guys have way more heat and way more accuracy from out here. And when you watch like Canadian youth lacrosse, they're going to slough in way
Yeah.
more in front of the net.
I mean, I would doubt that we would see that maybe at the 7-8 level. But okay, yeah, that's helpful.
Yeah, just one thing for like watching film and kind of understanding that a little bit more.
Yep.
Um, the really the last thing and one of the most important things is just transition game management. So the big thing is watching the last 5 seconds of the clock when we're on offense. So when we're on offense here and we're playing and we have about 10 to 5 seconds left in that shot clock, that's when the indoor coach should be starting to communicate, hey, we're getting ready, getting ready to get back, turn and burn, getting ready. So then what should be happening is let's say the righties are working with the ball and we're at about the 5 second mark. Well, this point player isn't really going to be that much of an option with 5 seconds left. Let's just start sloughing back to defense. Let's start moving back and keeping the game in front of us, and we'll let these two work. And then, so that way, when the shot clock changes, the horn goes off, we already have players heading back to defense that can take care of our end, and we're limiting transition against because that's like a number one indicator of success. It's just being able to limit transition against as you play the game. So, other than that, that's kind of like concluding of everything. Is there anything that you wanted me to touch on before we jump on with the girls or?
Um, I no, I think this is really great. I think this is all really important for the girls to hear and something that we can certainly work on with them the next practice. I think just having more structure in what we're doing defensively and like we had talked about offensively too is just so critical for them. I mean, last year it was I would say it was just a total, shit show for lack of a better term. It was just like go out there and best of luck. But I think this is great. I don't know if Mike, you have anything else?
Yeah, no, so a couple things I think they need to hear over and over and over again. One is the communication, vocal or just hand pointing or just, um, I think where they have the most to gain is the IQ portion. So, as you mentioned earlier, like playing out far at like GLE is pointless, especially if you're playing a righty that's in lefty position. It's even more pointless, right? I like understanding when someone's a threat. I think we need to communicate that more at practice, and then the slide up. I can see our girls
Doing that, yeah.
because that kind of back door that opens up doesn't really open up in field lacrosse quite the same.
Hmm.
Well, they do it in transition.
Hmm.
They bump up to ball in transition and it's just that easy pass over the head. It drives me mental.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Uh,
the slide
but it,
sideways, please. Come on.
yeah,
yes.
like so
But just in terms of stuff I've seen at practice, so this is Elliot. This is year two. So last year we had a 5-6 team, and now this year we've taken that group and basically split. So the veteran sixth graders are like now on 5-6 with a lot of new with the fifths being the first rodeo, and then we don't have a lot of eighth graders. It's all seventh from that team. So we don't, our 7-8 probably isn't going to have the physicality that most of the 7-8s because they're primarily seventh, but they
Mhm.
probably should have a decent amount of IQ. And then, the lefty dilemma. But I think everyone kind of deals with the lefty dilemma too
Mhm.
at this age. So
Yeah,
you
agreed.
kind of work around that.
Everybody's dealing with that lefty dilemma. The one thing that I've done in my programs in the past, and I think I shared with you, Mike, was I make any of my attackmen just play left-handed if I have a shortage of lefties, unless they're truly stellar, and I'm like looking at it from a long, year-round program, just perspective. I'll make them go play left hand, unless they're like a truly serious box player and they're really trying to get to that next level. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think that last point about the transition and those top players at 5 seconds again, it all comes down to like the IQ component. There's no point in not getting back. So we got caught a few times last year, the very first tournament, some terrible transition play just because it was new to us as coaches and obviously players. But that's something I think we could facilitate, and remind kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I get also all kind of like I have definitely have presentation and all that stuff lined up, but I'll kind of try to focus in a little bit more on those little situations that you just kind of outlined for me as well. Try to highlight on those things. Did anyone else see anything?
No, I think if you emphasize a lot on sliding sideways, because especially the 5-6, they're all stellar kids. Like our girls are really good. I'm so proud of what Kristen put together here, but they still kind of a little bit chase the ball, so they'll have that hunger to go. If your colleague is getting beat up top, and now you have this person coming down, they'll have that itch to slide up rather than to communicate to their right or left side defenseman to slide sideways. So I think as long as they understand that, I think transition is going to be much better from what I see at practice, and maybe just changes. But yeah, good stuff, coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, I'm really happy to be able to help you guys. This is awesome for me. I'm super appreciative just to be able to talk about this. I absolutely love talking about box lacrosse and like helping people kind of understand this game because when I went through it, it literally I just got yelled at by Canadians in Canada, and you just can't understand them when they're in a rink and they're mixing their O's and their A's together, and it
Well,
makes no sense. So
we have a Romanian and an English coach, so there's a language barrier there too, which is funny.
yeah, yeah, let them just fight it out with each other, right?
Yeah. Well, we feel so fortunate to be able to have this opportunity with you. I think the girls are very excited to hear from you. So we'll hop off and then what's the best way to get this recorded Zoom? Do you just like send it through Dropbox or is there a link?
What I can do is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna post it to YouTube and Vimeo, and
Oh
I'll
yeah.
probably post it on like an unlisted as well, and I can
Okay.
send that over for your team to have. And yeah, we'll go just do that way if that's good with you guys.
Okay, sounds good. It sounds like people are having trouble logging
Well,
on.
because we on. Once we get off, they'll be able to get on.
Ah,
Because
okay.
because his address, he's talking to us, so he can't get him in.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that
got
makes sense. Yeah.
it. Okay.
So I'll jump out right now. You guys go ahead and jump in. You can start if you could just like I doubt your girls are gonna be wild and insane, but like just like kind of like get them organized. I'm gonna go grab a
Yep.
pen and paper real quick, and then
Yep.
I'll
Very
jump right
good.
back in.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
coach.
you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.